Welcome back to the CSP Elite Baseball Development Podcast. I'm your host, Eric Cressey, and this is another edition of Pinch Hit Friday. I'm actually using this one as a accompanying podcast to the one we recorded earlier this week. So definitely check out the longer episode with Alan Jaeger and Randy Sullivan. We talked about return to throwing program following Tommy John. And I thought it would be good to look at the big picture of stressors for pitchers. I'm recording this in early February, so it's a relatively timely podcast because we know that pitching injuries do tend to be highest early in the season. We always hear about the rash of injuries as professional players report to spring training or the college game opens up. And certainly what we do know about injury rates is that if things are bad in the pros and they're bad in college, they're even worse in the amateur ranks, the high school ranks, just because things are even less controlled in that world. So I wanted to talk about the things that we consider stressors for pitchers is really just the pitch count. Obviously, this is the one that gets the most attention. It's the easiest to scrutinize. If we see pitchers that throw 15 pitches their first inning and then they go to 70 pitches the second inning, things probably aren't going to end well. Instead, what we want to do is we want to do a gradual build of chronic workload as opposed to these acute spikes. And one of the things that we've kind of defaulted to over the years as a more responsible strategy is making smaller jumps that are more frequent. So instead of having guys on a 7-day rotation and trying to bump it, 20 to 25 pitches every week, maybe you put them onto a 4 or 5-day rotation, you cut it in half. So it gives folks an opportunity to do a more gradual build. So that's a conversation for another day, the whole acute chronic workload model. But I do think pitch count is top tier, strategies for, quickly and easily scrutinizing stressors. The second factor is velocity, right? Pitch count doesn't matter if you're throwing 54. Matters a lot more if you're throwing 94. We have to scrutinize things a lot more if pitchers are throwing with more intensity, as measured by velocity. So that's a second stressor. What we want to be really careful about early on is spiking velocity, even if pitch count is low, because that's an acute stressor that's pretty significant. We know that there's a very linear relationship between arm speed and injury risk. That's something that's been established over and over again in the literature. And really my next two stressors relate directly to velocity because they contribute to it. And the first one is competition, right? We know a lot of major league pitchers who literally can't hit 90 unless they have somebody in the box, believe it or not. They just can't throw hard in bullpens until there's a hitter in there. Maybe there's some, just an extra adrenaline that comes with that. That's a way that they can tap into some of those higher threshold motor units and really sync things up and attack velocity a little bit more. So competition is the third stressor. When you add, that element, it does take stress a little bit higher. And then a fourth one that again relates to velocity is attention. So one of the biggest mistakes that I see in the amateur ranks is having a lot of scouts around for high school, outings that don't matter, whether it's a bullpen or a scrimmage or anything like that. You don't want to put those players on that pedestal and put lots and lots of eyes on them because that is a jump. A lot of big league guys jump their velocity when they get fans in the stand for the first time. So, we see this a lot when players go to showcases or, perhaps when they go to college camps or, even just the first game of the season when they have more eyes on them, they have teammates, they have front office members, other coaches around. It creates more and more challenges. I would also add that tech seems to create some of this same stuff. If you put somebody on a bullpen, and they just throw without any tech on them, it is what it is. But the second you start having Edgertronic cameras and TrackMan and all the bells and whistles on top of the folks that are actually operating that equipment, it does seem to create an extra level of stress for athletes. The fifth one that I think gets overlooked is the number of ups. So in other words, as a pitcher throwing 1 inning, 2 innings, 3 innings, we know a lot of relief pitchers who come in, they get an out in a big spot, and then they sit down and all the adrenaline goes away. And then they have to go back out for that next inning. And it really is a lot for them to get themselves going and pick themselves up for the second inning. And sometimes they're doing things to really tap into velocity that are much, much harder than they were in the first inning. So, you ask a relief pitcher to go out and throw 5 innings, they're going to struggle with this kind of stuff. But we also see it regardless of what the person's discipline is early in the season. So being careful with not adding too many ups. You never want to go from 1 inning to 3 or 4 innings where there's multiple ups, even if the pitch count isn't dramatically different. You see this a lot with, with pitchers who may get lots of ground balls where they come in and they have a 3-pitch inning. So it doesn't seem like a lot of pitches, but they sit down for 20 minutes, then they have to go back back out and try to redo it again. Those are really, really stressful events. And I think it's why you see a lot of Major League Baseball organizations sending a guy directly to the bullpen just to finish off their, their workload for that day, as opposed to sitting down and trying to recreate it. Sixth factor, frequency. Goes without saying that pitching on a 7-day rotation is a lot easier than pitching on a 6-day rotation or a 5-day rotation. And that's something that, we see quite a bit at this time of year. A lot of pitchers come into camp and they aren't going directly to their 5-day rotation. They may be throwing with a shorter frequency, and then they go into their 5-day and things change quite a bit. I think anytime you have an athlete that has to adjust to a shorter time frame, you have to take that into account, and the pitch count might not be able to be as high. So that's certainly a consideration as well. And then last but not least, I talk about pitch mix, right? There are certain pitches that are a lot harder on certain athletes. If you go out and you throw a bullpen that's 70% slider, you're probably going to be very sore in different places than you would if you just threw fastballs and changeups, whatever it may be. So, there are certain pitches that just don't do well with crazy high volume. They have to be, mixed in at appropriate percentages. So when you talk about a pitch design bullpen where someone is going in there and trying to rip sliders and really work hard on developing a new pitch, you might be making them a little bit more susceptible to injury. And sometimes the play is to take a longer term approach and gradually mix things in, because as you're learning, there are going to be some bad pitches along the way. So big picture, 7 stressors: the pitch count, the velocity / intensity, the competition level present, the attention, the eyes, and the tech that are on you, the number of ups or innings pitched, the frequency, how long between outings, and then finally the pitch mix. These are all important stressors that you have to keep in mind as you're trying to build safe pitching programs. I hope you find this useful, and more importantly, I hope you put it into action to really help our young pitchers today with not getting out over their skis and getting injured, especially at this early part of the season. This episode is brought to you by AG1, the most comprehensive NSF certified for sport daily nutritional supplement I've ever tried. With so many stressors in life, it can be difficult to maintain effective nutritional habits and give our bodies the nutrients they need to thrive. As a father of 3 young kids and a co-founder of multiple businesses in multiple states, on top of still being an avid exerciser, I know that busy schedules can really take their toll on us. Whether it's poor sleep, exercise or life stressors, environmental factors, or simply not eating enough of the right foods, we can often wind up deficient nutritionally. This is where AG1 can really help. It's a game-changing nutritional insurance policy. They simplify the logistics of getting optimal nutrition on a daily basis by giving you just one thing with all the best things. That's why I use it daily, as do several of my family members, and we recommend it to a lot of our top athletes. 1 scoop of AG1 contains 75 vitamins, minerals, and whole food sourced ingredients that work together to fill the nutritional gaps in your diet to support energy, focus, digestion, and recovery. And this can all happen for less than $3 per day and without taking multiple products. While most nutritional supplements come to market and stay stagnant, AG1 continues to obsessively improve this one holistic formula based on the latest research, producing over 50 improvements in the last decade alone. They invest in the most absorbable and natural source of each ingredient and go above and beyond in third-party testing to ensure their customers continue to receive the highest quality and best tasting nutrition happen on the planet. Whether you're keto, paleo, vegan, dairy-free, or gluten-free, it'll work for you, and it contains less than 1 gram of sugar per serving. They put 75 ingredients through the rigorous NSF certification test to come up with a safe formula that's trusted by some of the world's top athletes, including many of our own at Cressey Sports Performance. Right now, AG1 is giving our listeners a special offer of 10 free travel packets with their first purchase. Just head to drinkag1.com/Cressey and claim this special offer. These travel packets are perfect for supporting your immune system, energy, and gut health while you're traveling for games, training, or simply on the go. They can be great counterbalance to the less than ideal on-the-road food options that are out there for a lot of our traveling baseball players. So if you want to bridge the gap between deficient and optimal and give yourself the best chance of getting nutrient diversity, head to drinkag1.com/Cressey to get 10 free travel packets with your first purchase. Again, that's drinkag1.com/Cressey, Cressey. You won't regret it.